Internet access is something some of us may take for granted, but in 2020, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that over 400,000 homes in Louisiana had no internet access at all, and about 42% didn't have broadband access. The state is working to boost connectivity in the next few years with the Office of Broadband Development and Connectivity. I sat down with the executive director to talk about that process. So where is internet access the most scarce?
So if you start to think about where those pockets of highest density of unserved locations are, you could start to look at a map of Louisiana and think of Voiles and up. If you think about the nexus of the challenge of those that are unserved and the digital divide, and you think about the sort of socioeconomically how it's impacting people in those communities, it's going to be greatest.
So the need is really in rural areas.
It's in rural areas, but I'll tell you, it's also equally in urban areas.
So you mentioned earlier the pandemic and how that's really been an eye-opener for everybody, especially for teachers and educators. Is any of this, this initiative, all of it, is it geared towards students at all?
So if you think about the byproduct of all of these efforts, even if you take a step back, independent of our efforts, every elementary, middle, high school, middle elementary and high school all has access to fiber optic connectivity going to each of those schools. Every library, and we've been to some really small towns and villages in Louisiana, places like Ida, Louisiana, Rodessa, which is really a village, and other areas. A lot of those libraries have access to high-speed internet. So independent of our efforts within our Office of Broadband and Connect LA, the Board of Elementary Secondary Education and the Board of Regents have done a phenomenal job making sure that students within the confines of their classroom has access to what they need from a technology perspective. The challenge becomes once that student leaves the confines of the school and goes home. And that's where we're going to come in. We're going to help fill in that gap to ensure that there is universal connectivity from the moment a student leaves a high school, elementary, or middle to the point that they go home.
So indirectly, yeah, it helps students.
Yeah.
So behind us, we've got this really lovely diagram that kind of explains what you guys are doing, how many places you're really going to. Can you give a little bit more insight about what we're looking at?
So on July 25th, we made an announcement where we were going to award $130 million to several companies to provide access to high-speed internet to 66,300 locations. That's going to impact 50 parishes. And then on August 31st at our inaugural Broadband Solutions Summit that we did in Alexandria a couple of weeks ago, we launched another effort, a second wave of gumbo announcements, 38 million impacting 15,000 locations in a dozen or so parishes. And so what we are signifying in this board is within the last year and a half, in addition to scaling up our office, we've moved really aggressively to understand the needs of people and to appropriately direct where the funds need to go in those areas that need it the most. And so these two boards really signify the effort that we've done in terms of how much money that we've committed over the last several months.
Yeah, and it definitely represents progress and how far you guys are willing to go.
Right.
So is there anything else people need to know about this program?
No, just stay tuned. We're going to spend the next couple of months on the road meeting with folks from a variety of different communities. Really two things that we're going to really focus on over the next 6 to 8 months. The first is we're creating the state's first digital inclusion plan, which we're really excited about. And so we're partnered with the Board of Regents and Stephen Barnes at the University of Louisiana to partner with a coalition of universities, including Grambling, Southern University, et cetera, to put together the state's first digital inclusion plan. That's important because there are segments of society, folks that are disabled, folks whose language is, it may not be English as a first language, that were summarily impacted with the lack of broadband. And so we need to understand the challenges that those segments and those folks have so that we can better, again, tactically address some of their challenges. So we're going to work on developing the first digital inclusion plan. But as we get ready for the infrastructure bill, we're going to put together a 5-year plan on how we're going to allocate those funds. And so we're going to be spending a ton of time on the road throughout the state, meeting with folks, different constituencies, so we can get their feedback.
All right, well, it sounds like exciting things are happening. Thanks so much for
Appreciate
talking to
it.
us.
Take care.